Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in.
And I am your host, Tricia Carr. Thank you for joining me. We are actually in a brand new studio. We are in Burbank now, right around the corner from Warner Brothers Studios. You know, I do broadcast with United Broadcasting Network, formerly Universal. We have a lot of changes going on here. Brand new year, brand new energy, and I'm just super excited about it. I just thought I'd bring that up in case it somehow seemed different to you guys, because you're all very sensitive and perceptive, and so you're not crazy. It's different. Well, my background is the same. I brought that along with me no matter what. And so how is your new year going? Do you feel the fresh new energy? I know I sure do. You know, I talked about how we are moving into each of us in a new personal year cycle. And that first month can be the time that you really start to feel those changes. And it's also a time for you to be preparing for the big changes that are coming up in that first quarter. That's when we all feel it. Yesterday, we had a new moon, and we do have a lunar eclipse, I believe, coming. Is that right? I think a lunar eclipse coming today. I think that's when it is. So happy all of that to you guys. Just a lot of really cool energy for manifesting, for making new plans, and most importantly, for you to express exactly who you truly are. And I want to welcome all of the Lightworkers Lab members watching live. Hello, Lightworkers Lab. That is a spiritual community of which I am a teacher and a moderator. It's founded by my darling, amazing, luminous friend, Crystal Ann Compton, spiritual teacher and channel. And I have many Lightworkers Lab folks on this program. So you guys, if you're looking for a spiritual community for all kinds of resources for your growth, your expression, and fellowship, go find us. TheLightworkersLab.com, TheLightworkersLab.com is where you can sign up for our newsletter and our free library, but you can find the actual group on Facebook if you search Lightworkers Lab, and it'll come up as a group. So hello to the lab. And I want to remind you guys that you can watch us live every week at 11 a.m. Pacific. You can watch right on my YouTube channel. I broadcast this live to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tricia Carr. And that's where you'll find all of the other past episodes as well as other videos that I post there. And also you can find it on Facebook. It goes out live. And just find that by searching Tricia Carr Charm. I have a group. I have a business page. I hope you'll join me in all of these spaces. And of course, it's on iTunes, iHeartRadio as a podcast. So please subscribe, like, share, and comment. I would really appreciate it. I would really love it. My website is triciacarcharm.com. So I want to tell you a little bit about the work that I do and that I'm expanding in this year, because I would love to connect with more of you. I do one-on-one readings and counseling. So that is for folks who are interested in getting like the psychic mediumship kind of readings, intuitive readings. So I do connect with the spirit realm, your spirit guides, your angelic guides, or your past loved ones, or directly with your higher self to bring through guidance. And then I also, in those sessions, there might be energy healing. There is counseling and teaching, things that might maybe assessing your spiritual abilities that you're interested in uncovering, the intuitive, natural abilities, and the ones that you want to expand upon. All of that kind of stuff we do in my sessions. It's really full book, fully comprehensive, whatever work needs to be done. And you can also throw in there an animal communication portion of your reading. So go check it out on my website, triciacarcharm.com. I just absolutely love doing this work. I'm expanding into more of that, as well as more of my teaching. So my teaching, I'm going to be doing tons and tons of classes, and you can find all of that information on my website. If you go to my website, there under Work With Me, you'll see Healing Arts Academy. Actually, I think I'm changing it to Mystic Arts Academy, but you can find the academy, and there's a calendar there of all of the classes I'm doing. And if you're in Los Angeles, I'm teaching live and local. Today, I'm actually teaching a class in Burbank, and it is for developing your psychic or mediumship abilities. So check it out, y'all. I want to get more involved with whoever is interested in this work. I'm super excited to meet all of you. And today, I am talking about soul contracts and soul blueprints. And along with that, just basically the energy of what the soul is. You may or may not have heard about soul contracts. And if you have, then well, let me ask you if you would want to just go ahead and clear the slate so we can look at it afresh. If you can clear your slate, then you will have fresh questions that come up in your heart and in your mind. And I actually receive that. Spirit actually connects us in that way with our intention. And so, and also you can call in if you have any questions, 323-524-2599 if you're listening live. So first of all, let's start with what the blueprint is. Contracts is something that people talk about a lot, and it was literally asked yesterday in the Lightworkers Lab, which was so synchronistic because I planned this show, and then someone asked about it, not even realizing I was going to be talking about it. So hello to you who asked about this. So the blueprint. The blueprint is what we refer to as essentially the energy of the soul that is decided upon before you actually incarnate into this experience. It's sort of like a plan, like the blueprints of a house or a building. It's the pre-birth general kind of thought experience about the life. And really, even more than that, this is why I said I wanted to talk about soul energy. It literally is the energy of your soul. So let me talk about what that is. Before we become physicalized in this particular experience, in this life, we actually coalesce a lot of other energies together, many energies together. So there is an oversoul, like this big main computer complex that is overseen or created by, obviously, source energy, but also an archangel. And that archangel is the one overseeing that oversoul complex. Now, the oversoul complex is a bigger kind of, this isn't exactly when people refer to as the higher self, or it is, but it's a greater collective that is dispatching an intention. And so you could say that the oversoul is actually dispatching many thousands of intentions, which become multidimensional consciousnesses, which become eventually a physical life. Are you staying with me? I'm moving through that part so we can talk about the soul contract and the blueprint part. But you can actually let that information settle in with you if it went a little fast for you, or you can listen back later. So as the oversoul dispatches that energy, that it becomes the multidimensional consciousness. I actually had a vision about this that kind of made it look a little bit more formed in a way that I could understand it. And this is what I understand that people are referring to when they talk about soul groups and the soul contract and the blueprint experience, the life between life experience. So in my vision, I'll share this with you so that perhaps it can actually make a little sense to you as well by putting it into the framework of something that is physical. If you can imagine this, I should digress a little bit, that this vision came through a couple of times in my own trance experiences during, like in deep meditation, and another time when I did a quantum healing hypnosis technique. And the practitioner who actually led me through that, his name is Jeroen de Wit, and he's been on the show a couple of times, and he's going to be on the show again next month. So stay tuned to see Jeroen again. So in this vision, I saw the life between life experience. And essentially, my consciousness was standing the way that it seemed to me, just to give it again, a framework for me to understand it. It was like there were a lot of consciousnesses or a lot of light beings around a table. And to me, this table actually looked like selenite, this big selenite table. And there was really nothing else there except for feeling. I didn't really experience myself as having a body either, but I felt being myself. And I was sort of at the head of this table, and we were all working around a vortex of energy. So a vortex, like a spiraling kind of energetic movement. And, we were all conferring, but I was the one who was at the head of this experience. And they were all my counselors. They were all, contributing to it in wisdom and in intelligence. But they were literally giving of their own energy, the kind of energies that they were when it was decided upon, my intentions, the things that I wanted to experience as I, not really negotiated, but sort of had this conversation with them, talked it through, these who would be wiser or just of like mind for what would be good for my experience of expansion, which would then eventually be an expansion for everyone in the entire universe. That's how the universe expands, is actually by each of us individuals. And so, for example, the light beings or the consciousnesses that were around, I remember feeling one of them was my mother. And my mother, of course, at the time, before I was born, at whatever time this was, if we wanted to put it in linear time, was probably on the planet. But it's really a timeless space because we're working in really, really high dimensionality, high density. But my mother's energy was there. I also remember, of course, the Archangel Ariel, because she is the angel that oversees my oversoul complex. And there was Gabriel and Raphael and these other archangel energies that I'm really familiar with. And then there were other energies that they feel familiar to me, but I don't necessarily have a name or a face or a benchmark kind of identity to them the way that I have with these other beings. And of course, I don't remember absolutely all of them right now, but I could definitely go back into my trance and feel out more of who was there. But it actually kind of felt quite countless, that to know all who were there in what people referred to as your soul group was really kind of so deep and so profound that I may not really know this for this lifetime, at least not in a detailed sense, that it was definitely this group of identities. And I think part of the reason that it isn't fully identified, each of those individuals, is because each individual is also made up of many different energies, because that's how we're all actually one in highest truth. So as Archangel Gabriel would be conferring with me about this particular experience and expansion that I wanted to have as I went into this life, and then Archangel Gabriel would give of his energy, and it would go into this soul vortex, this vortex of energy. And so as Gabriel gives of his energy, and then we bond together, a part of this new energy also becomes a part of Gabriel, because we co-created it together, the intentions. And so that is one way that you can think about, if you want to, again, put it in a story kind of form, that we are all linked because we go one from the other. And that matrix, that network, is connective all throughout all of the individuations of the one energy, the one source energy. So as we were creating this vortex together, and again, all of it was my decision. All of it came through my ultimate free will. And it was all like, I was thinking about, I was thinking of the things that I wanted to expand upon. And then at the same time, I was comparing it to a context, because the context would be able to better expand it. So that context would be a time and a place, whatever kind of form coming down on, and a star, whether it was going to be the Earth or somewhere else. And it was decided earlier on in the process that it would be the Earth, because the Earth is a very important part of that creation, because my body and much of this and how the soul energy is then used is actually formed by connecting to the vortex of Gaia energy, the multidimensional consciousness, the archangelic consciousness of the Earth. And so that's what was going on too. We were comparing it. That was a part of the process, but it's sort of, I guess, if we look at it linearly, early on in the process. And so this would be, all of the beings that are involved here would be what people refer to as the soul group. And the way that we were talking about the things that we wanted to accomplish. So it wasn't just, archangels. It was my mother, and there were other people that I do recognize that I've already met in this lifetime. And we were talking about the things that we wanted to experience. And so as we were talking about that, this is what people refer to as the contract. Now, I think that the contract may be a word that we use that may throw people off a little bit as they first hear about it, because they think that the word contract, we associate that with what earthly contracts are, which is like, I made a contract for this loan, and if I default on it, I'm going to be penalized. That's how we kind of think of the word contract. So maybe the word agreement and plan is even a better word to consider when we say contract, but it's most commonly referred to as a contract. The reason why we want to disassociate it from how we perceive contracts in this earthly experience is because if you default on it, you don't get penalized from some outside authority. You aren't letting anyone down. You aren't letting down the other person. You aren't reprimanded, and you also aren't held into it as a kind of predestined experience. So it isn't something that is an obligation to someone else, and there's no big bad boss or God or bank or whatever that is saying you must do this. And so as we are going, we then allow, let me digress, back to the pre-birth experience. So we create this vortex, and it's never static, it's never ending in its creation, but at some point, this vortex is going to connect with the energy of the star or the planet, and that will then together create a physical body. It is actually the soul that creates the physical body, as an extension of the soul energy. And it is a co-creation with the star. Obviously, my physical body is made up of the 4 elements of this planet. So that is seamlessly a part of the experience. It is a primary part of the intention and the experience when we become physicalized. Being physical is a major, I would say, the forerunning intention of a physical life, being physical, because you have an infinite experience of being non-physical or spirit, but being physical is that spirit's intention right now, and the connection with that particular star and the use of the elements of the body, I want to just point that out too, because sometimes as we get a little bit into our exploration and we start to realize, for example, oh my goodness, so probably at my pre-birth experience, I had benevolent Andromedans, and I have Pleiadians, and I can connect with those energies, and that's all very true. But sometimes I have folks, or I see folks maybe online or something like that, and it makes them feel very isolated and out of place if they over-identify with it to the point of saying, I don't belong here. That's not true, and that actually creates suffering. You belong here, and the proof of that is that you are here, and you created yourself here. And so that is the primary intention, a very fundamental intention, is to be physical and to be the expression of spirit in physicality on this planet at this time. And if we go off that mark too much, then we're going to create suffering for ourselves, because it simply isn't the truth that aligns with our higher self. All right, so we then become physical, and these contracts or these agreements that we made with others, other beings who become human or are human already on the planet, and then, of course, spirit guides, so like Archangel Gabriel, I don't really have a contract with him. I have more of a guidance from him, and I have the counseling. He's like my head teacher, or one of my head teachers, and a counselor for me in the spirit side, and still sending me that energy and co-creating those aspects of my soul energy all along the life that I'm having. So as it concerns the humans and the animals and the plants, yes, all of these kinds of beings are involved in that creation, that co-creation process of your soul, and they're all in your soul group, and you make contracts with all of them. So yes, even the tree that is outside of your home for the 5 years that you lived in this particular home as a child, or the one that you're living in now, even if you only lived there a year, that tree is a part of your soul group. Your pets, the ones who are your animal family, all of your family and all of your friends, and as well as your colleagues and your coworkers. And some of the really more challenging things to realize are the people who may have treated you really poorly, may have abused you, may have assaulted you, and let's say even the bosses who were really difficult to work with, or the coworkers. All of these people you have contracts with or you have agreements with, and they were a part of the experience. Now, I will say, what I think is the ones that are more challenging, they were probably set in place at the level of the soul. And then some other ones, they may actually be sort of on the fly. They were created in this experience. So again, like I said, it never ends, the creation of that soul vortex energy, the creation of the blueprint or the creation of the soul contracts and agreements. Nothing is static about it. But there are some that really you can feel that they were set in place at pre-birth, because they're the energy that you are experiencing with that other being is so intense that it feels really profound. Now, I'll tell you that your parents definitely are in that pre-birth experience. They definitely, you have those contracts with them. And these are parents that are the ones who raise you and the ones who are your biology. So some people are adopted, or they somehow are not really raised for their full life or their full childhood by the people who gave them their physical bodies. Both of these sets of people would be still people that you have a soul contract with, that you have they're in your soul group, even if you don't know them. Because I think if you were adopted and you didn't even know your birth parents in some way, you're still of their body. And that's a really, again, fundamental experience. So these are the kinds of beings that would be in your soul group, or your soul family, some people call it. The animals that you have rich and intimate relationships with, and also the different kinds of plants. There are also elemental nature spirits that are working with you. I don't know if you know this, but if you've ever heard of elemental spirits, in this category of the elemental nature spirits are like fairies, elves, and yes, they're real. Children are able to see them usually still, and they aren't just fantasizing. This is a real experience that we've kind of forgotten about. And the other realms, the higher realms, you might say, of nature elementals are like the ones who oversee each of the 4 elements. So that would be like the earth elemental. Deva is a word that we tend to use, which means basically overseer, one that is more like the general or the manager. The element of earth is overseen by gnomes. Humans used to actually be able to see and experience gnomes, but in each, or all of the elemental spirits, in each of the 4 elements, the physical elements, is overseen by a particular class of being, or sort of. And we all have guides in those 4 elements, just like we all have guardian angels, and we all have spirit guides that may be ancestral, or other kinds of people who were other kinds of spirits that used to be human. We actually have elemental guides as well, and that's really important because we're actually made of those elements, and so it's really nice to know that we have that kind of guidance as well. And so all of these kinds of beings we have agreements with, whether they are our guides or they're here on this plane working out those lessons on the actual field, meaning like you're in the field working it out. You're actually doing the work together. So if you have, for example, a contract with someone, you're recognizing, oh my gosh, I have this really difficult relationship. Let's say that you are in a relationship and the person is sort of dominating you. And this could be, maybe it's a romantic relationship, or maybe it's a boss or something like that. Probably the contract that's going on there, if you are feeling dominated and maybe like this person is being narcissistic and arrogant and trying to oppress you, your part of that contract would be to have your own power manifest, to feel your own empowerment. And also to have compassion for that person. Because you see, being in just the victim stance of that relationship disempowers you, but it also makes them an enemy and it makes them a bad person in your perspective. So having compassion for them for the reasons that they are behaving and exhibiting those certain affects is a really important part of that lesson that you would be learning. And to be compassionate for that person and compassionate to yourself, and then feel your own power and to grow through that. So as contracts go, these are not, like I said earlier, binding. And what they are sort of, you have your own binding to the energy of it because of your desire to learn and grow and expand. So it really is your contract with yourself. You see, if you came into this experience knowing that you wanted to, the primary goals or a divine virtue you wanted to experience was compassionate empowerment. That's that lesson that we were just talking about. And so this is really important. And maybe in that pre-birth experience, there's a person who is like, okay, you're going to go be a female and I'm going to go be a male and we're going to be heterosexual. And I'm trying to learn how to have gentleness and and like the other person who might eventually become narcissistic and arrogant and dominant, I need to learn how to have more compassion in the way where I see gentleness and subtleties and become more sensitive and expand in that way. And I'm going to be the one that is actually going to grow in my compassionate empowerment. All right, so we're probably going to get married then, and we're going to date or something. So let's say you go down into the planet and you are doing your thing and you get a job, and the job provides for you that kind of boss who's a very similar energy, very arrogant, really dismissive of you, a little bit oppressive. And if you just quit that job and move on to the next one, you might have the same kind of a boss. And if you quit that job and you move on to the next one without finding your empowerment, then you might meet up with this person and marry them, because that lesson is still wanting to be learned. But let's go back to that first boss who was very domineering, and you found a way to have compassion for them, and you found a way to be empowered in yourself. Now, you may still quit that job because it's also up to the other person to learn their part of the lesson. But if you're able to learn that lesson, experience your truth, your power, and have deep compassion for the other person, then as you complete that contract, so to speak, then the person that you were eventually, had a pre-birth kind of plan to maybe marry, you guys wouldn't even be attracted to each other anymore, because part of the attractive energy is the lessons that you want to learn, the questions that each of you is asking, because the other one has part of the answer, and you help one another work that stuff out. So it's really interesting to think of it as, it's really just a contract that you have with yourself. So having said that, how else these contracts work is that you may have a part, you're working on this long contract. We have some that really seem to take the entire life, and that's okay. And you get to a part of the contract and you're starting to get or you get to part of the relationship and you're starting to get really frustrated. And it's almost like you're looping. So that could be, I know we've all had romantic relationships like that, where you're like, I want to leave, I need to leave, but I have so much built around it that it seems impossible to leave. Maybe it's family, or maybe it's just that you live together, or just history, and it seems really difficult to end the relationship. Or let's say a job or a career that you want to change, it no longer seems to be suiting you. And so you feel like you're just stuck. When you feel stuck like that, sometimes, I was praying about this and I was in meditation about it, Spirit showed me that sometimes we do actually need to move on from the way that relationship, whether it's the job or the person, in order to continue the resolution of that part of the contract. So we have so much habit built around it that we're kind of like, when you get in an argument and you've been saying the same thing back and forth over and over, and it's like literally we said the same thing 10 times back and forth to each other. It's not working. We need to stop talking. And so you stop talking, you stop that argument, you stop that discussion, and then you go about and you work some things out on your own, and then you can come back to the conversation, hopefully. And if you both did some work, then you'll have some fresh contribution to it. That's kind of what I'm talking about here in this, when we get to a part of the lesson or the contract where it seems like we're really frustrated and stuck. Well, you might need to either take a break from it or end it with that particular relationship. Because then whatever is left to learn in that lesson, if you have a fresh context for it, you might be able to get through it a little bit quicker. So having said that, we actually have a caller. So I'm going to go ahead and take that call, and then I'll come back talking about those soul contracts and then get to the blueprint portion of it as well.
Hello.
Hi, who's this?
This is Michael from Northern Maine.
Hello, Michael. Thank you so much for calling. What's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to have you try to tap in. I've been working on myself spiritually, and, I've been trying to evolve and raise my vibration, and I have family members that kind of send, I call it atomic bombs, because they call me up and they say awful rotten things to me and to my daughter. And then I was sending out love and light and compassion, and I told them, I said, I even text messaged them, I'm only sending out love and light and compassion. Well, that worked for a day and a half, and then after a day and a half yesterday, I kind of fed into it, and I broke down and started saying bad things back to them, and it really put me in a position I don't want to be in, because it's not who I am.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you want to figure out, you would like some advice on how to continue to be more of who you truly are and to move through these relationships.
Correct.
Yeah. And so these are close relationships. It's like you don't have to divulge it, but your immediate family.
No, my sister and my sister and her 4 daughters.
Yeah.
And then and then her daughter's wife. So there's like, there's like 7 of them.
So the first thing I feel coming through is to tell you that you can spend less time with them and you can have more privacy. And there's 2 ways that actually would manifest. First is for you to literally spend fewer minutes with them. But then second is for the minutes that you spend with them to have more privacy and to have boundaries about what you are negotiating with them, what you're talking to them about. And I'm going to give you an example from my husband's life, actually. I don't think he'll mind. They don't listen. My husband does, but my mother-in-law doesn't. So a long time ago when my husband was like in his late 20s, and his mother was, in his, like asking him about the girl he was dating and sort of like giving her opinion of the things that he shouldn't do. And, from perspectives that don't line up with him, like, religious and stuff. And at one point, he had been with a counselor, he'd been talking to a counselor, and he was complaining or sharing this experience with his counselor about my mom is in my relationship and is like doing this kind of stuff. And the counselor just looked at him very peacefully and just said, "Aren't you a man?" And not like, the machismo way, but like, "Aren't you an adult?" Well, this is an adult relationship.
Exactly.
And so your mother doesn't get an opinion. She doesn't get a vote in your romantic relationship. And so my husband was like, "Oh, wow, big epiphany." And so the next time his mother started to say, "Well, you should," with this girlfriend, he just said, no, Mom, I love you, but we don't talk about those things. And it was hard for her, but she loves him, and so she minded that boundary. And she tried again a couple more times. He's like, "No, remember, no, that's just a no." So he set a really hard boundary. And sometimes people, they're the things that they want to needle in about are more important to them than the relationship, and that's unfortunate. It's not really according to their true heart, but that's where their focus is, to try to argue rather than to connect. So some of that
Correct.
Stuff with them, you hold a boundary with your sister. The nieces, the nieces, it feels like very much that they do not need to be in your business. And with your sister, really some strong boundaries with the conversations, the topics that you're having. So as it concerns like fewer minutes with them, but also boundaries about the time that you spend with them has not to do with the things that shouldn't be their business. You know what I mean? Can you feel a way to be able to do some of that?
Yeah. What you're saying is I can energetically, if I know I'm going to enter a conversation with them or I'm going to see them, energetically I can put it out there, but also have rules of engagement before, like if I do meet up with them or talk to them, say, "Listen, we're not going to talk about A, B, C, or D, and I need you to honor me or we can't talk."
You can, definitely. I would say what you want to do is to definitely first be really okay with it in your heart, too, so that it isn't an argument. Like my husband, when that counselor said to him, "Aren't you a man?" he was just like, of course I'm a man. I can't believe I hadn't realized I'm a man. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And it's just like holding it with full conviction, so that it's completely logical that it isn't appropriate for you to be voting on this thing that is my domain. And so, yes, you may try it like, "Hey, let's not talk about these things." But what you might want to do is to soften it in a way that is acknowledging them and saying, "I know," it's always good to acknowledge them and say, "I know that the reason you want to talk about these things and help me with this stuff is because you care about me. But I really think it's best for our relationship if we don't talk about it because we get upset with one another, and I want us to love each other the best way that we can." Something like that, so that they're just like, "Oh, you're right," because you're being logical. Now, of course, we're offering logic. Not always are people going to choose logic back. But definitely energetically, like you said, set it up in advance and really feel in possession of those boundaries in a way that is loving for you, but loving for them as well. Boundaries are loving for other people, not just yourself. You see, if we have weak boundaries and people are allowed to have access to us in a way that makes them able to express their poor behavior, then we're not helping them. we're indulging their bad behavior as well. And so we're not supporting them by having our weak boundaries.
Wow, I love what you said. That so resonates with me, and that is going to help me, and I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. You have she is your great-grandmother on your mother's side, and she's quite a character. And when you just first started talking, you guys have a similar kind of personality energy, but she was even more for her time too, like a little bit more mouthy, she says. That's what they called me, but she loved it. She was very vocal and really strong with her opinion. But really not really had a full life where she was able to be a strong voice and figure out that boundaries are really important. And so this is what she says, like, stick with it and stick with you. You don't need to be in the energy of negotiating with them. This is the reason why I'm making my choice about this thing. No. We shouldn't even be in that conversation. Let's just figure out how to love each other and support each other. See the light in them and encourage the light rather than seeing the dark and trying to help them to get rid of that. Just see what they're doing right and enhance that, and see what you're doing right and enhance that.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Wow. Wow. That is so beautiful what you just said.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, well, wonderful. I'm so glad that it's beautiful to you. And well, thank you for the question too. You can connect with that great grandmother guide. She really gets it. She really gets it. And she's so on your side. And yeah.
Wow. I appreciate it. And just one quick question before you let me go.
Sure.
I'm somebody that had a brain injury that built a restaurant. I got hit by a drunk driver in 2011. Built a restaurant about 2 years ago. The restaurant is closed. It's been closed for about 4 weeks because I need to do some healing, and then there's some damage to the heaters in there. And you're the first person I've been praying and praying and praying to my grandmother and great-grandmother, and I wanted to know if they have any words for me in regards to the restaurant that I built in their honor.
Oh, how beautiful. Okay, so the grandmother is on your father's side, right? That's the one that you were talking
on my mother's side.
Oh, okay. Well,
the one that you connected with, yeah.
That's the great grandmother, but I get a closer energy, so it could be aunt, but I get on the father's side as well, closer on that tier. So let's see. So. Okay, the rest, so be really present and release the fear about it. But I'm getting something about March. I think that's more of when the energy will align with it being opened up again. And so just be patient and don't cut any corners. And just So think of it as you're going through the project to reset everything and reform and, get it operating really well. Just think of it as the play opening, opening day. So everything is moving as in alignment rather than being scared and either rushing things or having doubt, fear, and worry. Just stay on that intention, the light intention. I love the way you frame it. It's built in their honor. And so just keep focusing on that light, knowing that they are helping to give you each step of the way. Just bless as you make a decision. If it's a contractor or somebody that you're going to be involved with, just sit down and pray or meditate. Bless the person. Send your love before you. Bless the person that would be the right one to connect with you for this, and that it will be mutually beneficial. Everyone will be blessed. Allow the blessing to flow through you. And it's all just going to be falling in alignment. And this is all bringing you very present with the process. So it feels like really good. And it feels like maybe the energies toward the end of the year, somehow the energies actually make it to where it's starting, it feels a lot better. Like when you reopen, it's going to be, as it is, it's going to be like a challenge. And, that's how new businesses are. It's not totally new, but it kind of has a newness to it, but with the reopen. And then it's going to start cruising a little bit more and you'll feel better about it.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to follow you in your podcast, and I want to support you.
Aww.
And thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for calling in, Michael. Really lovely to connect with you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So, well, that's a good example of challenging soul group relationships with the sister and the nieces. And so what Michael would be learning there is boundaries and, being able to possess your sovereignty, have your own sovereignty, and knowing that deep in your own soul, the counsel of your own soul is really where you want to enhance the energy so that you can have clarity about how to move forward. So that was a really great example, and I appreciate Michael for calling in. All right. So as I was saying, the soul contracts, they are not predestination. Now, people refer to the soul contracts in saying that they are karma. And that is a good way to look at it. But one thing I want to point out that karma is not. It is not a wheel of punishment. Karma really is about the lessons that we're learning, how we want to expand. And so if we were to drop a lesson that we're trying to learn too soon, then we're going to continue to learn it later. If we break up with someone who is treating us poorly without doing any of the inner work to, know that we deserve to experience someone who treats us well, then we'll probably attract another one of those guys who treats us poorly. That's what karma really is. And so, yes, it does extend through all of the lives and all of the experiences that we have in the same way that it is in this particular life. But it isn't a wheel of punishment. And I don't believe personally, and if you believe differently, that's totally fine, because you never know. Maybe I'll believe differently sometime too. I don't believe that we have this wheel of karma that is like the reason that you keep reincarnating is because you haven't cleared up your karma. I don't think of it that way. I don't think of it as some kind of it doesn't make any sense to me if we have free will. I do think that we choose to have these experiences because the peace and the expansion and the lesson is the thing. And so if we still want to expand and we still are needing to learn, then we're going to continue to have experiences. And so that's the perspective that I see it as, because we have free will. So naturally, when we complete those lessons, then we move on to different ones. So now let me talk about the blueprint. As I was saying, the intentions of the energies that go in to create the soul, and then it becomes a body, and then we're continuing to have these experiences and the lessons. So that's really that's what the blueprint is that vortex that is created with all of these different energies. And that also is continuing to be co-created. So we can shift our blueprint now, today, in that maybe the way that it's going to unfold for me, maybe at this time it's about speaking, but at some point, maybe in 10 years, it's going to be about writing. But it's the energy beneath it is still about connecting, you see? And so but it still feels like certain things become the primary expressions and therefore are the primary kind of tent poles in the blueprint. But that is deep that is your soul energy. That is what you are made of. And so the way that we know what our blueprint is, well, first of all, it kind of shows it to ourselves. It shows it to you, I should say. When you're a kid, you tend to start exhibiting it in your play and in the different ways that you express yourself as a child, because it's just there naturally. And then daily, we just go into our meditation, our devotional time, our prayer, and we feel that pure essence of our soul, dropping all of the outside distractions. And then it naturally unfolds and manifests before us. Now, other things we could do is we can actually we can have a reading, like with me, or a counseling session, or other people that have been on my show. And you can allow others, an intuitive reader, to look into your soul vortex and look into the Akasha, or the quantum field, and see how those energies are wanting to be manifest at the time. Because a lot of times a person who is objective, not so close, and having the domestic blindness, can be a great reflection of what's going on in your own energy. Now, some other things that can help you to understand your blueprint are modalities like numerology and astrology. I love numerology, and I'm actually studying it right now, because when you see that there was when you look at those charts, when you look at those numbers or the stars and how they align with who you are and where as the pre-birth experience, because you came in at a certain time, and that's unchangeable, with a certain name that's unchangeable, you couldn't pick it, your parents did, on a certain birthday. When you see how those energies actually unfold in your life and are continuing to unfold with the seasons of your life, then you know, wow, I am known. I am definitely known by the universe, and I definitely have an intention in this being of mine. And so that can really help you. It can be like that stuff is available to us to be guidance systems, and that's really awesome. So You don't have to become super duper expert at it. You can just pick a practitioner and allow and read a little bit about it, and then just know some of the basics, whichever kind of system excites you, and allow that to bring you really present is what I think it does, and to provide for you the empowerment of what really is your true essence expressing itself. I'm just looking at my notes to see if there was anything else that I wanted to. All right. So one other thing that I wanted to point out, let's see, we talked about how the soul contracts, they're not binding. You really have bound yourself to the lesson and the thing that you want to expand upon, but the individual you're playing that out with, that isn't binding. You can end a contract with anyone at any time, and wherever you left off in that lesson, you'll continue to unfold in another relationship. And sometimes when we get stuck, it's because it's time to end it with that particular person or context, could be a job or something, so that we can more quickly move through the lesson. And, we might be ready to move through it in a faster way, and it's time for us to separate. Now, so far as it concerns things like lifelong relationships, there are some of those that we may become closer and farther apart, like maybe a best friend or even your immediate family, and that's okay. We continue to pick up new experiences with one another. For me personally, I'm in a marriage, my husband and me, and we are. I know in my soul that this is going to be our entire lives. And so the contracts that we are working on together, we really matched up. So certainly we had a pre-birth contract, and we aligned certain things up. One of the things being that we wanted to, each of us wants to have a lifelong relationship. Now, we actually didn't meet each other until we were 30. So we had the whole first 30 years of not having a lifelong relationship. But that's actually one of the fundamental lessons in our experience. And then all of the other ones that we are experiencing individually and working out together, those just are a part of it. And so there are definitely relationships that can last the entire life or a very long time. People have the same kind of career or job for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that's all really exciting too. There's nothing right or wrong about how you express your blueprint or the contracts and the lessons that you want to learn. Not in any kind of outside sense. That right and wrong, that's all as to you and what helps you to express yourself most fully. Now, I wanted to just mention the whole idea of twin flames and soulmates. Soulmates to me are these important relationships. And they could be friends, family, lovers, spouses, animals as well. So they're the really important relationships that we get to experience deep and profound love with. The twin flame aspect, I don't find it very helpful the way that I've heard it expressed. And metaphysically speaking, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because, as I said, the oversoul complex dispatches actually thousands and thousands of different consciousnesses. And again, that's where I am right now. And just usually when I hear people talk about twin flame, usually it's with a lot of angst and it's actually limiting. If you align with the idea of a twin flame and it makes you feel free and unencumbered and genuine and true, then great. But that's just my particular thought about those two words and those two concepts. Well, that's about it for this show. I appreciate Michael. Thanks again for calling in. Thank you guys for listening and watching, subscribing, liking, and sharing. I want to tell you also that I have a Patreon community. Patreon.com/Tricia Carr is a way that you can support this program. But I also do a lot of special events there. I'm actually in the middle of a class called Archangels and Universal Laws. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. The last class that we just had was Sandalphon, Archangel Sandalphon, and the law of correspondence. And there were a lot of evidences that showed up after that class. So I hope you'll go check that out, TriciaCarr.com/AA-UL or Patreon.com/Tricia Carr. And I love you all so very much for joining me on this program week to week or however you do join it. And I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.